Hello, Ramley, another NFL family. Payouts. I'm here with another McVay presser reaction. This is Monday, December 23rd, 2024, and we are reacting to a couple of clips here from Coach McVay's presser today. I encourage you, go watch the full presser. It's worth it. I'm only going to view a couple of segments here, react to it, give my thoughts. And there's a couple of interesting things he says here. The first thing I won't play here, but if you want to hear about it, he talks about injury updates, and essentially he says there are none, to sum it up in short. And I am so thankful for that, because if you remember at the beginning of the year, whenever Coach McVay gave injury updates, it sounded like he was reading, just the longest laundry list ever. So I'm so thankful that that's over with, and the Rams are getting healthy, and they're looking like one of the healthiest teams going into the later part of this season and potentially the playoffs, which is a huge advantage for the Rams. But the first question he's asked here that I'm going to react to is about, the Rams got destroyed by the Cardinals back in week 2, and McVay is asked about that, and this is kind of his response to it.
Johnson gets hurt on top of all the other injuries from week 1. Just what was the process of kind of picking up the pieces from those games and figuring out how to move forward with who was available at the time?
Yeah, it seems like that was an eternity ago. These seasons are long, and there's a lot of different experiences. And, ultimately, I think the guys have just stayed the course. I do think that a lot of those things that we had to navigate through did provide us a callus, where there's some of that resilience and that toughness. I think it forced us to develop some depth that we wouldn't have done otherwise. Guys have gotten opportunities to step up. Those are challenging things, and really a lot of that stuff started in the off season and into training camp, and it felt like it was kind of when it rains it pours those first few weeks of the season. But our guys have just stayed the course. They focused on what they could control one day at a time. I love the response that we had the following week.
Coaching. This is why Sean McVay is an awesome coach, folks. I love what he said there. That's one of my favorite answers I've heard from McVay in a presser, and I've watched a lot of them. But coaching so matters when your team is injured, banged up early in the year. Do you have a coach that can encourage him to keep coming, right? That sees the opportunity of creating depth. And that's what happened. That is what happened. We saw this Rams team grow up before our very eyes. And seeing, Bo Limmer win the starting center position, seeing Omar Spates develop into a great linebacker, Christian Roseboom, he's a seasoned veteran, but he's been balling out, right? And I love what McVay said when he said, when he's asked about that Cardinals game back in week 2, and he's like, oh, that felt like an eternity ago, because he doesn't care. And he shouldn't, right? Like, he can go back and watch the film and see, what went right and what went wrong, because that's, part of his job. But ultimately, he's put in the past. He's like, just because they beat us week 2 doesn't mean they're going to beat us again here. No, it's a, new season, new team. The Rams, it's crazy to think the Rams are actually healthier now here going into week 17 than they were back in week 2. That's just crazy to think about, especially at the O-line position. But just fantastic answer by Sean McVay. Love it here. Going to move forward. Again, I encourage you to go listen to the full thing. But I'm going to go to the segment here where he talks about looking ahead at playoff scenarios, because that seems like that's all that Ram fans are talking about nowadays. Let's see what McVay says.
In terms of things that might be at stake, I guess that Thursday night, Seattle at Chicago on Thursday night, depending on how that goes, you guys could be in a position to clinch the division on Saturday. And I know you're very focused on day to day, but do you allow yourself at all to consider that scenario at this point?
I mean, I think what's at stake, but I think what you also know is none of that really matters if you don't handle what we are responsible for controlling. And I think that has served us well. To sit here and say that you're not aware, and I'm a fan of the game and you don't pay attention to it, but as far as our dialogue in the building and how that affects the way that we go about it, that isn't something that we talk about, because it really doesn't have anything to do with our preparation as it relates to trying to go play our best football game Saturday night against the Cardinals. To sit here and say that, hey, if Chicago were to beat Seattle, we wouldn't be aware of what's at stake. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that's not something that we're not in tune with. But the truth is, how disciplined can we be of really focusing on the things that we can control? What I've loved about this group, Gary, is since we've kind of even talked about these types of conversations, our guys have handled their business. And the only thing that matters is, are we taking care of what we're responsible for? Fortunately, we're in a position where you don't necessarily have to rely on other things to happen. If you just handle your business, that's where my focus and concentration lies. That's where our coaches and that's where our players have been throughout the course of the week as it leads into the game that we have on a weekly basis. And that'll be the same this week.
Whew. Attitude of gratitude by Sean McVay there. He recognizes the privilege that the Rams have of being able to, win. If you can win out and win your division, make the playoffs, that's a luxury in the NFL, right? You don't need help from anyone else. But I do love that he recognizes, hey, the one team that can take the division from you plays on Thursday. If they just happen to lose that game, how would that impact you, right? And Sean McVay's, I love it. He said they'll be aware of it and the opportunity that would present in this Saturday game against the Cardinals. But looking at that playoff scenario, I know I'm going to be watching the Seahawks Bears game. I'm going to be a huge Caleb Williams and Chicago Bears fan. Is it a tall order for the Bears to beat the Seahawks right now? Yeah, I think it is, because the Bears have been losing a lot of games. Seattle's lost a couple of games recently too. So who knows? Maybe it's not crazy, right? Like, it's any given Sunday, but maybe any given Thursday, right? But that being said, the game that is McVay's priority is preparing for the Cardinals on Saturday night. And again, love what he was talking about here. He talks about Jordan Whittington and special teams, which have been great. Jared Verse. And okay, this is the next one I wanted to go to. He's asked about Ahkello Witherspoon over Cobie Durant. Cobie Durant, he missed the game versus the 49ers, which was a disappointment. And then he was clear to play versus the Jets, but he didn't. And so he's asked about it here and Ahkello Witherspoon played, all game.
Hey, Sean.
Hey.
What went into the decision to start Ahkello Witherspoon yesterday over Cobie Durant, and what did you see from him in that game?
Yeah, I think he's played really well over the last couple of weeks. Cobie obviously getting back off the lung contusion against Buffalo. He's a guy that we have tremendous confidence in, but thought Ahkello and Darius had played really well against San Fran. Cobie's a guy that's played at a high clip this year. And so it's a nice luxury to be able to have, three guys that we look at as truly starting corners. And then we have some guys that can be flexible in terms of playing that star position or the safety position. But been really pleased with Ahkello. I think he's played really good. I think he's competitive. He's got good length. He's got the ability to be able to, be sticky in coverage, especially on short intermediate. And I think he's really played the ball well down the field.
Just going to interrupt Coach McVay there one sec. Guys, remember Ahkello Witherspoon balled out last year, then didn't re-sign with the team. And, Jake Ellenbogen was going nuts about that in the offseason. And then, thankfully, he didn't get signed by any other team. And kind of mid-season, he comes back into the Rams and maybe had a bit of a transition time, but he's played pretty well. And, he had one really big pass breakup on Devontae Adams on Sunday that saved a touchdown. So yeah, I'm glad Ahkello's back. Let's continue listening.
With some of his looking lean, just techniques and fundamentals. But I thought Ahkello has played really well these last 2 weeks, and he's had some key and critical stops and some really important down and distances that have been huge for our defense, both against the Niners and obviously yesterday against the Jets.
Thank you.
And again, that's one of the things you love about Coach McVay and Chris Shula and the Mike LaFleur and all the Rams coaching staff is they do a good job of recognizing who's hot. Who's the player that puts you in the best position to win. That's kind of the terminology that they'll often use. And I'm so happy for Ahkello Witherspoon that he came in and, he kind of tossed aside by not just the Rams, but every NFL team. And he's been playing really well as of late. And if you look at it, Darius Williams, Ahkello Witherspoon, two veteran corners playing well. Cobie Durant has established himself as a veteran corner. The Rams going into this playoff, and they're going to need their secondary to step up, right? And I know, no one wants to see Emmanuel Forbes play more than me, because I really am curious how different he looks in a Rams uniform compared to a Commander's. But I like, that we have this veteran secondary, and that it seems like the Rams are liking what they're doing, and they're going to keep with it. So, and I'm not, they held the Jets to 9 points. Say what you want about the Jets' decision making on Sunday. The Rams still held them to 9 points, and Rodgers, he definitely had that one really good drive for him, the 99-yard touchdown drive. But outside of that, the Rams secondary made some big plays, and the Rams defense as a whole made some big plays on Sunday. And I like going up against Kyler Murray and Geno Smith with this Rams secondary. I really do. And I think going into the playoffs, these guys can, be a difference maker in the Rams playoff hopes. All right, the last they talked about third down defense, and then the O-line chemistry, which is so important. But I'm going to finish off the final segment. I want to just talk about is celebrating Kyren Williams. He's been such a bright spot for the Rams this year. You see the clips of him like playing catch with fans before each and every game, whether it's on the road or at home in SoFi. Huge fan of Kyren Williams on this channel here. And so we're just going to react to when he's asked about Kyren Williams here, and we'll react to that here.
Coach, just want to ask you one more question on the outstanding play of Kyren, and he continues forward breaking. Well, he's going to be setting records. So 2 more games to go in regular season. But your thoughts on him picking his holes, any blocking schemes maybe per team that you face that you have to make for him, or is he just really going based on his own instincts and his gut?
Yeah, I think the players have done a great job, and I think the run game is always about all 11. And, Kyren's been outstanding. I think he's done a great job. I think better backs make better blockers. I think he understands the intent of what we're trying to get done. Thought he did do a great job of creating on his own on a few runs yesterday. And then I thought he did a great job of being able to press the heels of the linemen and set blocks accordingly. And so it's always, football is the greatest team sport there is, but Kyren is an absolute stud. He brings a toughness, a physicality, just that energy that he plays with, I think, is uplifting to everybody that he's around. And he's been a catalyst, just like I was mentioning with the offensive line. Those two guys, those things go hand in hand. Kyren and the offensive line, and that's going to be key for us moving forward.
Muchas gracias. Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
All right, yeah. So again, love what Kyren Williams is doing, and I see some criticism online for this Rams versus Jets game about Matthew Stafford only throwing for 110 yards. He only had to throw the ball 19 times, and he completed 14 of his passes. Aaron Rodgers had to throw it 42 times and only completed 28 of his passes. And the reason why Stafford didn't have to throw the ball that much, even though the Rams were trailing for a good chunk of this game, because the Jets were hogging the ball the entire third quarter, is Kyren Williams was running the ball so effectively. Blake Corum too in his limited capacity. But Kyren Williams was the best player on the field on Sunday, in terms of the offensive production, 23 carries, 122 yards and touchdown. And Kyren Williams is going to start getting more and more love, hopefully. I will happily be a person that celebrates his success. He's such a likable guy. He got drafted in the 3rd round, came in, was the backup to Cam Akers, and then overtook Cam Akers. And I does anyone remember that being a thing? Like that was kind of like, whoa, what Kyren Williams is taking over Cam Akers' position? And yeah, he did. So definitely a big fan of what Kyren Williams brings to this game. And I love that he's developed into a huge part of this offense. And I know people love to, compare him to Todd Gurley, Eric Dickerson, Marshall Faulk, Steven Jackson, Crazy Legs. There's so many historic running backs in the Rams. I probably missed someone, and correct me in the comments. But seeing what Kyren Williams is doing to carry on this lineage of historically fantastic Rams running backs is really exciting to see. And I know we talk about Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua a lot, and Tyler Higbee and the historic that he's been as a tight end for the Rams. But Kyren Williams is he's still a young player, becoming one of those historic players for the Rams that we're going to talk about years from now when he's done playing. And we're going to hey, do you remember when Kyren Williams just kind of ran over the Jets in the freezing cold? And I'm excited for it. I think if the Rams make any kind of Super Bowl run this year, I think Kyren Williams will be a huge part of that run. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thanks so much for watching. Link to the Rams channel is in the description below. Go check it out. And as always, go Rams, horns up, and peace out. Let's go Rams. Woo!
Thank you very much.